Karn, friends and foes, and welcome to the 5th faction preview video for the mod DCI The Last Alliance. I am Ngugi, team leader, and on behalf of the team we today shall have a look at the faction known as Harad. The faction known as Harad is followers of Sauron faction. They are having 2 kings, as we will look more on later. We are having numerous light infantry and Black Númenóreans and mighty mûmakil. However, we lack early heavily armored units, so most of them will come first in time. I made an account for the second age about Harad and the Haradrim, their relationship to Sauron, and more in detail the Númenóreans and their fall from grace. But in order to not make this video too long, I've kept it out of here, so if you want me to upload that, just give me a heads up. In short, Harad means simply the south and is the south of Middle-earth, and that is inhabited by a lot of different peoples and different groups and cultures. In the early Second Age, Sauron came and he gained dominion over them. He came first as a beneficial teacher and made many people rich who would follow him, but he hunted those who opposed him into the wilderness. Of course, since Sauron is a tyrant and his desire was to become God over all men, the King of Kings and God over all men. And so it became because men feared him greatly, quite naturally. Meanwhile, in the Western Sea there was an island known as Numenor. On Numenor lived the people mostly known as the Númenóreans or the Dúnedain, but in their own tongue called the Dúnedain. And these people were given a very long life, and they grew tall and strong, and they were gifted with knowledge and lore and craftsmanship by the Elves and the Valar. And this was as a thanks for them helping fight against Morgoth, the first Dark Lord in the First Age. But over the centuries, the Númenóreans were getting more and more envious of the Elves because they did not want to die. Most of the people started to spend their energy on gaining dominion in Middle-earth, becoming lords and masters, extracting wealth from Middle-earth so they could clad themselves in silver and gold and feast and try to forget the fact that they were mortals. And this started about perhaps the 20th century of the Second Age. Over the centuries this became worse and worse. The main population were called the King's Men because the kings were starting to hate and oppose the Elves and the Valar living on the western continent of Valinor. And the minority are known as the Elf Friends. The Elf Friends more and more migrated, leaving to settle in the north of Middle-earth, while the Kingsmen started making colonies in the southern parts of Middle-earth, in Harad. In the 33rd century, Sauron were starting to attacking these colonies in Middle-earth. Numenor had a king, Ar-Pharazôn the Golden, who went to war with Sauron. Sauron knew he could not defeat Ar-Pharazôn, so instead he surrendered and was taken captive. While there, he became the advisor of the king instead, and he made the Númenóreans becoming totally corrupt. He was quite finishing off the job that the Númenóreans had started themselves mainly. So he made them believe that the real god of the world was Morgoth, and if they just started to worship the darkness and sacrifice human beings, they would earn immortality. Of course, the whole culture became fierce and envious and hateful altogether, and of course they did not earn immortality that way. And at end, the king Ar-Pharazôn himself was growing old and about to die, and Sauron tricked him that if you are taking your army and conquer Valinor across the sea, then you will earn immortality. That was not true, but Sauron's idea was that perhaps I can make the Valar kill my enemies for me. And so Ar-Pharazôn went, and that spelled the end for his army. His army was swallowed by the earth. The island of Númenor was sank under the sea. A few people survived. Those were those led by Elendil, who was the leader of the Elfriends, while Sauron's body was destroyed, but his spirit returned to Middle-earth. In Middle-earth, of course, were not only remnants of the Elfriends in the north, but in the colonies along the southern parts of Middle-earth were still those kingsmen who worshipped Sauron, and they are known as the Black Númenóreans. In this time, now in the year 3429, when the game begins, we are encountering a situation where in near Harad, just south of Mordor, there are the king Herumor and Fuinor, who has risen among the Haradrim. Welcome in-game to the strategy map. The first thing to point out here is the UI, the visuals, as you can see here in the bottom, as well as with the message scroll, and as you will see both with building cards and event scroll images. It is the same UI as is used by the faction Númenórean Kingdoms, ergo the Arnor Gondor faction, and this is to represent the fact that just as with their cousins the Dúnedain in the north, the Black Númenóreans are inheritors of the Númenórean cultures, and overall throughout this preview we will have a focus on how there is an intermingling between the Númenórean cultures of the ruling class of Harad with the original native culture of the Haradrim. We begin seeing the customary welcome to Middle-earth message scroll summarizing the recent events in Middle-earth, as well as some game notes. We have the customary options with the Balrog and the immortal Nazgul, and I will just press accept in order to move along. Now, the Harad faction starts with settlements along the coast, and then have conquered their way inland, because originally the Kingsmen were settling along the coast, and we are presuming that they were just slowly bothering to capture land further inland. The settlement names, Umbar aside, are given with some consideration to the history of the King's Men, where these coastline cities are given names in the Elvish tongue and are relating to the kings who were ruling over time. So Kirian Danast and Barad and Kalemon, for example, these are given these settlements are having their name based on kings early on during the colonization period, when the kings of Numenor were still using names in Elvish tongue. While when we are moving inward lands, more recent occupied settlements, the names are given here as Karad Simrathon and as well as Kadar Gimilsor. These are later kings who were taking their names in their own Aduanic tongue, and Kadar is, for example, an Aduanic term, an Aduanic name, reflecting that the more recent holds of the King's Men are given names reflecting that they were now rejecting the Elvish tongue and instead are using their own Aduanic one. And let's toss an eye at what we can capture now when we are starting off the game. We are not having a firm control over all of Harad yet. We have the small hold of Sika in the south, and eastward we have Tsirta. These you can take to gain full control over the Harad region. The Tsirta settlement should be a focus, unless you want the Easterlings of Rune to have a go at them, and we of course do not want to cause an international accident here. You are not starting as an ally of the Easterlings, but you are on quite good foot, so get an diplomat and you can soon ally with them. Then we have northward here the Harondor region that is bordering the proper Gondorian kingdom. Harondor is acclaimed by the Gondorians. They claim it to be theirs, but it is contested, and as such it begins as rebel settlements. So these will be up for grabs for you too. Now we shall have an eye at the strategy map models of the settlements. As usual, the models of the armies and characters are still work in progress, but the settlement models are as intended, and we can see here, as with a little village such as Harfalas, that they are quite native, and likewise we can have a look here at a town. It looks native in the manner of the Haradrim. It is the same UI as used by Rune, for example. While the larger the settlements become, the more Númenóreans they will look in appearance. Right now the only obvious example of this is Umbar, that starts as a huge city, and as you can see it is completely Númenórean in appearance, and while you are developing your other city they will become less and less native and more Númenórean, because just as in the north with the Dúnedain, they will as they are upgrading and investing into construction, they will build in the manner they are used to. So they are not changing their style to adapt to the natives, who they will of course consider less civilized. Instead, they will impose their own style upon the kingdom that they are creating. We will see this with Umbar, and I hope you shall enjoy this site. And welcome to Umbar. I cheated here a little bit by turning myself into the Númenórean kingdoms. This is currently, we're seeing here Elendil's grandson Menelil, but it was the smoothest way just to get an access to Umbar. And Umbar is the largest settlement in the entire game. It is a huge city, making it in practice, despite not being a custom settlement per se, it becomes so in practice because you will never see this city appear anywhere else in the game. You cannot construct it. So Umbar is a massive settlement, and it is unique in that regard. Massive walls, of course, towers, mostly, and here you can see it, it has a mostly mixed architecture is the word I'm looking for. As you can see here, we have houses that are Númenórean, and we have the Númenórean building here, a big temple with the dome. It is Númenórean constructs here, but just on the other side here you have a Haradrim native culture architecture. So it is a mixture between the ruling Black Númenórean culture, and here and there you see the traces that this is in fact in Harad. So the Haradrim are, here we can see too, the Haradrim are of course living their Mark II. In fact, had this been an early settlement, a low-level settlement, there would be mostly the Haradrim style of buildings with little to no Númenórean architecture. But as said, step by step, the architecture of the Númenórean heirs is taking over, presumably as it was just in Arnor and Gondor as well. And in order not to have anything in the way, we are turning around, and it is so that if you in the settlement has a port, if you have a port in the settlement, this site will be seen outside of the city. We can say nothing but Witnavar, you did one hell of a job creating the harbor of Umbar. The Umbar harbor, you can get down here using the camera. However, it should be noted, units may not enter this part of the map, so they cannot fight here out in the harbor. However, it is a splendid piece of architecture, so we send our gratitude to Witnavar for that, of course. And welcome back to the strategy map. For the empire building players, we shall now toss an eye at some economical factors, and we can see this by beginning looking at Umbar, where we do not have any options to build a mine. Instead, there are no mines available in all here of the southern part of the map. In general, DCI is designed to be a great challenge, and economy is an important factor in this. As we said before, this is not a game meant to be played by your little brother. However, that we do not have mines available do not mean that we do not have many good economical choices. I begin with pointing out the slave market that is available in regions with the slave resource. The slave market will offer a fine income bonus of 200 per turn. However, shall be noted, it also has a 1% conversion to the other's culture factor. It is not displayed up here, so it is important for me to note it right now. This means that every turn the other's culture, as we see here, is increased when you have a slave market, representing that there's a lot of alien elements coming into the community, because not all slaves that are bought will come from your own lands, but they can come from different parts of the world, from different cultures and with different religions. So you are trading economical benefit for an increased risk of turmoil within the realm, less public order. Then we have the Caravans, as we were looking in at when we were looking at Rune. And the Caravans, of course, has their trade bonus, and as we said last time, the trade bonus of the Caravans is much greater than with normal markets. If we are looking at, have 320 currently from trade, and if we add a fairground, we will go up to 340. So the trade bonus is not that great, despite, of course, we get also a base settlement income of plus 100 here. So as we went up from 320 to 340, while if we instead are building a caravan, we are going from 320 to 472. So the trade bonus from Caravans is massive. And in order to grow your empire, the Caravans do not only offer you increased trade, but the second and third level of the Caravans are allowing you to get a population growth bonus of first 0.5 and then 1%, not available to any other faction than Harad and Rune. So this will help you to grow your civil settlements in the desert regions. Final difference with the faction of Harad concerning buildings here are the shrines of Sauron, and they are different from any other faction including Rune. The first construction is not a building proper, but it is the Mountain of Skulls. The Black Númenóreans want to make their mark. They want to show they are merciless, both to earn Sauron's approval, but also to frighten any people within the land, any subjects, because they are a really tyrannical and sadistic nobility. So they get the normal 2% bonus to culture, but they also get a penalty to public order to happiness, so minus 5% happiness. This penalty, however, must be noted, operates so that if you have a building that gives you happiness, then this building will take away from that bonus. So if you have no buildings in the city that gives happiness, then this will not apply. It's not like if you have 0 happiness plus, then that you will get a minus 5% from this building to public order. Instead, if you have a building that give 10% plus happiness and you get the Mountain of Skulls, then suddenly the settlement will only benefit from 5% of that other building's happiness. As we advance, we build a Temple of Sigil, and the Temple of Sigil will of course give us an increased bonus per usual of plus 3% here culture, but it will also give you a public order bonus penalty of 5%. So again, decreasing. If you have any buildings like a barrack that gives you plus to law, then that bonus will be a bit reduced by building a Temple of Sigil. So and the reason why people are giving less law is because your subjects are fearful of the Black Númenóreans, because the Black Númenóreans are sacrificing people within their temple. So you are trading the increased public order gained from converting subjects to the followers of Sauron culture to the penalties given by the building. So it's a bit of a trade-off. It can make it slightly harder when you are conquering new territory, but of course you must convert the population in order to not get revolutions sooner or later. And then the final in city settlements, the Dark Temple of Sigil, inspired by the Temple of Armenelos on the Numenor. It gives you a culture bonus of 4%, but as long also as as Sauron is ruling in Mordor, then you also get a culture, an extra 1% culture from the largest Dark Temple. Now, the public order bonus penalty to happiness is now 10%, so it's a even less less happiness that you can benefit from. However, beside the massive conversion rate, you will also be able to recruit the Sigurun Order, and the Sigurun Order are warrior priests, and we will meet them later on when we are looking at the roster. So, further difference that we shall look at concerning units is the difference between city settlements, civil settlements, and keep settlements, the military fortifications. And they are offering early game, or rather early in the game, different recruitment options. In a civil settlement, the units you are getting from your barracks are Sauron Levy. These are a very basic militia unit, and likewise from the missile building you get the Sauron Levy Hunters, but in the military settlements, instead of getting these levy units, you instead are getting the Sentinels, so Sauron Sentinels, and it is these guys who have some armor. We will look at them closer in the roster, of course, and likewise instead of the Levy Hunters, who I'm simple archers, you get the Sentinel Archers. So you can retrain units recruitable in cities, also in military settlements, and vice versa. However, you can, as you saw, not recruit them in the other kind of barracks or missile ranges. Then there are some, as we are accustomed to, AOR units, meaning area of recruitment. They are limited to the certain regions, and some are well known, and most will be news here. We have these guys, the Far Harad Infantry, and later after the barrack event, the Far Harad Warriors. They are limited to the Harad core regions, the homelands. Likewise, we are having the pirates, and the Harad pirates are found only in the south, as we might figure from their name, so they are also an AOR available unit. And of course the mûmakil, the great beasts of war, are available also only in the Southlands. We have also a unit that is available with some restriction in Umbar, as long as you have a port, because it is the port that makes them available. We have the Azulada Mariners, and Azulada Mariners are Black Númenórean mariners who, instead of having a javelin, they are having a bow. But they are available in Umbar at game start. However, you cannot recruit them anywhere else until the barrack event has occurred. Then they become available from higher level ports around the world. We shall move on and have a look at some family members. Of course, here we see Lord Fasan already. He's the captain of the ships in Umbar. He is of the line of Herumur. We have two starting kings. As mentioned in the lore intro, there were two Black Númenóreans who rose among the Haradrim. It was Herumur and Fuinur, and since we know nothing else about them than their name, we have taken the liberty to make them in-laws, explaining why they rose to their position together or at the same time. So they each have their own family within an invented tree. There are, as is custom with family trees, the son of Herumur and any male heirs of his are given the line of Herumur trait, giving them a boost to authority, making them more likely to be picked as kings in the future. And same with King Fuinur, his sons are given the line of Fuinur traits. No difference between them, but simply that you will know if this later on generals are direct heirs of either Herumur or Fuinur. King Herumur is a good general who is much feared. Both kings are given an biography each, and they have a special ability each. For King Herumur, it is the Lord of Numenor battlefield ability. It is the same as I think Elendil has, because again, many of these Black Númenóreans, at least the older ones, might themselves been born and raised on Numenor. And let's see here. And then we have King Fuinur, who is not quite as a great commander, but still a very good one. He has his biography, and he has his special ability Iron Fist. He also has the ancillary cats, and everyone who knows some about Black Númenórean history will of course know about Queen Beruthiel in the Third Age, a Black Númenórean lady who used black arts and cats to keep people under control and under supervision. Then these both lords are very great and strong. Also, they are having, I can mention already now, they are having a mounted bodyguard. This is not custom. Only the kings among the Númenóreans here, the Dúnedain, are having a cavalry bodyguard. The rest are foot soldiers. These Black Númenóreans aside, of course, you need collaborators, and you will have vassal. If you're a Black Númenórean, of course, you would have a vassal kings among the native populations. Yes. So there are two starting generals. We have Luhulgal, who is starting with an ancillary chief of the Haradrim. This is representing that he is from the native population who is working with the new nobility and lords of the Kingsmen. So he is having also a bodyguard that is mounted cavalry archers, quite useful along the way. The second native is here, Muskal. Muskal has the same chief of the Haradrim ancillary. However, apparently he is rather related to the pirates of the islands, presumably because he is having a Harad pirates bodyguard. So he is coming from some different tribe than his colleague who we met here. With that said, we can move on and have a look at the models on the battlefield. I can actually take the moment to note that the names used by the Black Númenóreans here, beside actually the names of the two kings themselves, are not Sindarin. Sindarin, the Dúnedain in Arnor and Gondor use, but their Dúnedain cousins, who despises the elves and for centuries have avoided the elven tongue, they are using names given in Aduanic, or in some cases I have taken the liberty to add names, if I recall correctly, also from Westron, the common tongue used in Middle Earth, but mainly it is in Aduanic, so it's the names are authentic to what the Black Númenóreans would call themselves. This of course include, for example, Idrahil, and names known from the family tree of the princess of Dol Belfalas, I was about to say, but Dol Amroth, as is it known in the Third Age. While, however, the two Haradrim chieftains who we are having here, Muskal and Luhulgal, their names are given in Sumerian, because that is a tongue I find proper to use for Haradrim, according to a long line of academical considerations. But let's ignore that and move on to the generic general model, the foot soldier. We are here meeting the so-called the Barim an Azul, and the Lords of the East. They are, of course, elite infantrymen using sword and shield. They are being led by this general here, who of course resemble their cousins a lot in Gondor and Arnor, simply due to them being in a civil war. As I said, it's a cultural civil war. The island is gone, that connection has broken down, but still many on both sides, as noted, were still living on Númenor just 100 years ago. These men are preferring to be a bit more decadent and extravagant than their cousins in the northwest, though, and they are having a bit more of decorations, and of course they are having leopard skins, while the general himself is having a lion skin pelt here to mark his greater dignity. So these guys will do quite a lot of work for you in battle, whenever you dare to take the chance to risk them, of course. Then we have Musgal, the Haradrim, and he is having here his custom model. He is, as you might see, a pirate lord, so he is leading a unit of pirates. They are quite light, of course. We are comparing like 14 attack, 27 defense, and we are looking at 6 attack and 10 defense, so naturally he is not as useful on the battlefield as his counterpart, but the unit is larger and they are having javelins, so they can harass some, making the battle easier in the long run. Then we have the second Haradrim general, Luhulgal, who is having a Carib archer bodyguard, meaning simply enough they are mounted archers. So that is useful. There are not many archer or none other archer bodyguard, and this is one of only 3 generals with a mounted general, making him more unique. However, this cavalry is native and quite light compared to the heavy-hitting Royal Ar-Karib, and Ar-Karib is wielding no shield but only a heavy lance. They are good to make a charge and crush the opposition, but should get out of the melee fairly easily, rather fairly soon. If they are staying in battle, they will wield a shield and a sword. Here we see the captain and rather an officer, a bannerman, and behind him we see, of course, a general here. The king is the general. But these guys, both kings have the Ar-Karib, the royal cavalry, and they will be appreciated during the war, because otherwise all are having foot soldiers except for the kings, and I will get I will tell you a bit more about these soldiers when we are looking at the roster in general, but the reason why this is the case is of course that the Númenóreans are big guys, they are tall, they are strong, and they use heavy armor. The horses in Middle-earth are usually too weak to carry them into battle. So the Númenóreans on both sides, both among the Dúnedain and among the Adunai, are accustomed to not riding into battle. However, there are cases where they have access to horses that are capable, and then they will ride into battle among the Black Númenóreans, who are also of course living in many cases in areas where horses do not like to live, like in jungles presumably, and such things. They won't have horses, but the kings do. Now we will go through the units as they more or less appear in the campaign. First, from the civil settlements, as noted, we have the Sauron levy. They are spearmen, so they have a bonus fighting cavalry, and they get a combat bonus in deserts. They are most available in deserts also, but their attack is weak and their defense is weak with 0 armor and only up some defense and shield and block, in general making them weak to attacks in the sides, especially in the back, and certainly arrow fire. With him we here see their Bannerman, the so-called simple Bannerman, who is having a flag with on one hand a native serpent symbol, but above that the sign of the lordship of Nmenreans. Then we have the Sauron Sentinels, who are available from the military barracks instead. They can form a Tangail. A Tangail is the same thing as a Schildtrom. Also spearmen, they get a bonus versus cavalry, bonus deserts. I will stop mentioning that with the native forces because that is a trait they have. Other faction units usually get a penalty in deserts, but the Haradrim gets a bonus instead. The bonus do mean that they get some more defense skill than fighting in deserts. But their attack is 5, so slightly better than the levy, and they have a total defense of 9 with at least 2 armor, so they will stand a bit more of a beating before they are broken. But they are still quite cheap, only 495, so you can muster a few of them. Not as cheap as the Sauron levy, however. All costs in the game are related to their stats, so if they're having better stats, they will have a higher cost, of course. Then we have from the Far Harad. From Far Harad we have the Far Harad infantry. These men are wielding axes, so they are effective against armor, meaning they have armor piercing. Armor piercing lower the enemy armor value with half. So if an enemy has 10 armor and you have armor piercing, the enemy's armor value is only counted as 5 instead. They are having an attack of 5 with a total defense of 8, but again 0 armor, so do not expose them to attack in the back or in the sides, and do try to keep them away from arrow fire. Still they have a shield and block value of 5, so they can handle some missile fire from into the face, but in general keep them safe. As you can see, they are wielding a simple cloth. They are, however, having an officer of their own. He is of the kind that we will see with the higher tier Far Harad soldiers. He is having a banner that is a bit different from the near Harad soldiers and bannermen, but also with the start, because they are marking that they are sent from kingdoms that belongs to the Númenóreans in the Black Númenóreans in other parts of the world, or they have been ordered by Sauron to join up with the Black Númenóreans in the near Harad and march under their banner. So we have lastly, these are the infantry units available at the post-barrack event. It is the Harad fencers, swordsmen, so they will be a bit more efficient against other infantry. However, they are, despite having 7 in attack, they are still only having 9 in defense with a low armor value, so they will not stand for a very prolonged fight against heavy infantry from other factions. However, just as with the Sauron Sentinels, they can hold the line for a while, and in that time hopefully either the Far Harad infantry will attack the enemy in the flank, or some cavalry will do so. They are also having this Bannerman. The Bannermen are crafted by Earl of Memory, as are these new units, while several of the Haradrim units, of course, are the Third Age Total War models still used. We now move on to the Archer line here, and these are pre-barrack event available Archer missile units. We have the Sauron Levy Hunters. They are having a missile attack of 4, but they are not very good. They're not experts at hitting a target, and their range isn't excellent. And they are having, so they are better just to fire at a mass of enemies than trying to take out a specific target. Still, with only 3 in total defense, if that mass of enemies are coming close, you better run. They have some defense skill, but as you can see, that is all. Then you will be much more happy to, because these guys you get in a civil settlement, you will be much more happy to have some Sentinel Archers from a castle settlement, from a keep, because these guys are having, while just 1 more in missile attack, they are more accurate. And please remember that in DCI the damage will not be very different between units from different factions and different tiers. The big difference will be in accuracy, because if you do not hit your enemy with your arrows, it do not matter how much damage you do, of course. Now the Sentinel Archers have also better range, beside better accuracy, and they have a total defense of 6 with at least 2 armor and some better defense skill. So they will not do very good in melee, but they will not be mowed down instantly at least. So hopefully, if these guys will have to end up in a close quarter combat, you should presumably be able to get some reinforcements to them fairly quick. Now we look at the price. It's 570 for these guys, and then we have these pseudo archers. It is the Azulada Mariners, who are available in Umbar as said pre-barrack event. They are having a missile attack of 5 as well, but they have a melee attack of 10 to compare with only 4 for the Sentinel Archers as well as the Levy Hunters. But with 10 in melee attack and 18 in total defense with 8 in armor, these guys are capable of doing some close quarter combat. In fact, they do not have that many arrows, making them they're not having that many arrows, so they are just shooting off a few arrows, and then they are accustomed to trying to board the enemy and kick his ass that way. This unit is likewise as with all the new creations made by Earl of Memory. Then we see the cavalry available post pre-barrack. I hope I haven't said post-barrack before in all cases, but pre-barrack again. These are the Carib, the riders. They are having an attack of only 3 with their main weapon, but of course a charge bonus of 7, making you want to cycle charge with them. They are having a total defense of 10 with only 2 in armor, so even more you want to cycle charge with them, because if they stay still among the enemy, they will easily be cut down. And in melee they are wielding a sword, so they have an acceptable secondary attack value, but try to attack, pull out and attack again. At least they are fairly cheap and they are quite common, so you can get quite a few of them during the campaign. Then we have the Carib Archers, who are of course the mounted archers of the faction. They are having a missile attack of 5 but only a melee attack of 3, so if they are entering melee, it should preferably only be to hunt down routing enemies, or possibly to attack an enemy in the back. But they also here have a total defense of 6, so they should stay away actually both from missile fire and from close quarter combat. Then we are moving up to the actual post-barrack units, and first we are looking here at the Far Harad Warriors. These guys are coming from kingdoms across Far Harad. They are professional spearmen, so they are of course having their bonus against cavalry. They are having an attack of 7 and a total defense of 17. Armor is 6, but they are keeping up a good shield and defense skill. Of course, they cannot match their counterparts among the Black Númenóreans, but they will be very useful against enemy cavalry, especially if you are meeting, say, Rovanion, where the Northmen have much cavalry. And they are having a delightful aesthetic, in our opinion. Then we are meeting the High Lords, and here we can see they are having their own officer here, the type with real Black Númenórean style. Here we have the Black Númenóreans, so simply called. They are shield and sword infantry. They can make a shield wall. They have an attack of 11 with a total defense of 22, of which 11 is armor. So they are clad in quality gear. They are looking very much. They are looking very much like their counterparts among the Dúnedain. Again, simply because they are the same people. They are just taking different side in the war with or for Sauron. You can see here the Black Númenóreans are mainly blunt. That is because most Black Númenóreans were blunt. They belonged to they came mainly from those Númenóreans who descended from the House of Hador in the first stage. The House of Hador were blonde, while most of the elf friends descended from the House of Beor. The House of Beor are black of hair. That's why Aragorn and the other Dúnedain in Arnor and Gondor are mainly black of hair. The Black Númenóreans, on the other hand, were mainly blonde. So that has been corrected. It was asked for already when we made our original preview. It has always been a plan to fix that, but it was recently made so. And then we have the real dread on the battlefield. I can tell you, I played as the Númenórean kingdoms, and I've met the Sigurun order. The Sigurun order are like Templars. They are, as we looked at before, recruited from the Dark Temple in large civil settlements. They are wielding excellent outfits. They can frighten nearby enemy infantry, making them very annoying to fight against, because they make your troops afraid and wanting to run away. They are of course an excellent morale. They have an attack of 13, and they're having a total defense of 28 with 13 in armor, making them a bit weak to enemies who are having armor piercing capacity, of course, but still they have a defense skill of 7 and a shield of block of 8, compared to Black Númenóreans with a 4 and 7. So these guys are not easy to take down with really anything, because especially as their defense skill is reasonable. It's not so many of them. They are only 100, so they are a bit cheap. However, they are not so common because they are limited to the top level of the civil settlement conversion building. They do not make a shield wall, however they are more than capable of hacking their way through enemy lines. Just try to keep them away from enemies with big axes, and you should do very well with these murderers. Fair and plain. Oh, and I almost forgot to show the elite archer unit. We can't have that. It is of course the unit known as King's Archers. The same name applies for the Númenórean kingdoms, aka Honor/Gondor. The King's Archers are effective against armor because they are having hollow steel bows. While it says that I have long range missiles, this is a point to discuss. They are having a missile attack of 6 as noted, armor piercing, so they will make one hell of a lot of damage. They have a little fewer arrows than is ordinary. They are having also a range that is the range of normal bows, not long bows, and this is based on information about historical steel bows used in the real world, where they had advantages, but one disadvantage was that their range was of a normal bow. So these guys are balanced in that regard, that you can kill heavy units easily with King's Archers. As said, 6 in missile attack, armor piercing ability. However, you cannot kill them on great range. So that is a balancing factor during gameplay. However, to take them out before they can kill you, or for the enemy to take out your archers before you can kill them, is not so easy. These men are, as you can see, dressed quite fancifully. They are having a total defense of 12 with 9 armor, so they can handle quite a lot of missile fire at range and take even attacks in the flanks or backs to some degree. Some defense skill and no shield and block, but the armor will help them quite a lot. A hefty price, of course, due to their capacity to kill the most heavy of foes. However, of course, they have a limited amount of arrows, as said, so all in all they are a balanced force to take into account on the battlefield. Then we have the post-barrack event cavalry units. We have the Barin Karib, of which the king's bodyguard is made out of. The Barin Karib are heavy cavalry who are having an attack of 5, but with a charge bonus of 10, so you want to use that attack against the enemies. A nice little detail here we can point out: the Eye of Sauron is of course on their lances. They have a total defense of 16 with 18 armor, defense skill of 5, and shield and block 3. They are conceptually they are not actually Black Númenóreans themselves, even if they are outfitted with Black Númenórean gear, quite alike the Mariners outfit. They are instead native men taken from the Carib, and often also they are sons of Black Númenóreans and native women. So they are they have a loyalty and they have ties to the Black Númenóreans, but they are not Númenórean proper. And this idea springs from the fact that the Black Númenóreans during the Third Age often were assimilated into the native populations. And then, of course, our old friends, the mûmakil. Their stats is, of course, absurd. They fight in cavalry. They are having in infantry, but they can run amok. They are having all their archers upon them, so they are firing at the enemy. As usual, people sometimes find them hard to challenge. I can tell you shortly about I was playing a campaign as Rovanion. I constructed an elite army, heavy infantry, heavy cavalry, heavy archers. I thought I would kick ass. The Harad army contained mûmakil, and I had no javelin men, and I had no ballista, meaning that my army got completely wrecked. It was a terrible defeat. But it is really like units have their strengths and units have their weaknesses. If you can find the right way to counter the mûmakil, you will do fine. If not, it will be a world of pain. And with that, this is only the general. Again, yeah, we can have a look at the captain, of course. He is like the Bannerman, except he has no banner. But in difference to the Black Númenóreans, who have black mantles, the captain has a little bit more noble mantle to mark him out on the battlefield. We thank you for sitting through all of this. The team behind DCI Last Alliance hope that all who are looking forward to play as the faction of Harad, unleashing Haradrim and Black Númenóreans and mûmakil alike upon the northwest of Middle-earth, shall have a fun experience ahead. Thank you.